You are now listening to the Daughter to Daughter podcast with your host, Shaniqua King, where we heal from trauma in the presence of God. Join me as we embark on a healing journey that encompasses the spiritual, mental, and emotional work necessary to overcome past trauma in the presence of our Father, learning to lay it down at His feet and in turn receive restoration, wholeness, and healing. When you know whose you are, you know who you are, and you know what you have. Welcome back to another episode of the Daughter to Daughter podcast. In today's episode, I might have to gather y'all a little bit. I might have to yoke y'all up because there are a lot of y'all who are not willing to do what it takes to receive what God has for you, to receive healing, to receive deliverance, to be set free, for the chains to be broken off of your mind, off of your heart, off of your soul. There are too many of you who are unwilling to take action, who are unwilling to do what it takes. And instead, you're praying for a miracle, but you're not willing to do the work required to maintain that miracle, sustain that miracle. You're not willing to do the work required to receive what it is that God has for you. So that is what we're going to be talking about today. Get y'all Bibles out because we are going to 2 Kings chapter 5. 2 Kings chapter 5. And we will be starting at verse 1. So this chapter is about a man named Naaman, and Naaman had leprosy. So we're just going to read a little bit, and we're also going to flip somewhere else too, but we'll get there. And so 2 Kings chapter 5, starting at verse 1, it says, "Now Naaman, a commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper." Now I'm going to pause there. In this first verse, it's pretty much beefing up Naaman. It's telling of all the characteristics of Naaman. Naaman was a commander of the army. He was a great and honorable man, and he was also a mighty man of valor. I looked up in the Strong's Concordance that word valor, and the Hebrew definition, it says strength, might, efficiency, wealth, and then it says probably a force. And I'm just like, wow. Like I thought of the phrase a force to be reckoned with. Like when someone says, yeah, they're a force to be reckoned with. They're a force to be reckoned with. That's what I thought of. And I'm just like, wow, this man of great stature, this man of influence, essentially. This is a man of influence. This is a man who holds titles. This is a man who gets things done. And then it says, and I laugh because it says, but a leper. But he was a leper. Man, did y'all hear about Naaman? Naaman was a great man. He was highly regarded. He was a man of valor, a mighty man of valor. But y'all, he got leprosy. Whispering, y'all, he got leprosy. Y'all, he a leper. He a leper. he's all these good things, but a leper. And so let me continue on. It says, verse 2, it says, "And the Syrians had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife." So essentially she was a servant. "Then she said to her mistress, 'If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy.' And Naaman went in and told his master, saying, 'Thus and thus said the girl who is from the land of Israel.' Then the king of Syria said, 'Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel.'" So I want to pause right there. This man, the king, gave Naaman a letter. He said he was going to write a letter to the king of Israel. Um, what kind of favor? Like, that is favor. That is favor. Um, and also these are instructions that he's giving him. He said, "Go now." Those are instructions, and Naaman obeyed those instructions. So now I want you guys to keep that in mind. The king gave Naaman instructions. He said, "Go now. I'll send a letter to the king of Israel." It says, "So he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. Then he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which said, 'Now be advised, when this letter comes to you, that I have sent Naaman my servant to you, that you may heal him of his leprosy.'" Verse 7, "And it happened, when the king of Israel read the letter, that he tore his clothes and said, 'Am I God, to kill and make alive, that this man sends a man to me to heal him of his leprosy? Therefore, please consider and see how he seeks a quarrel with me.'" So I want to pause right there. The king sent the letter to the wrong person. He was thinking that this king must be the one. He's a king. He's a person of influence, power, and authority. He must be the one that is able to heal. So when the king of Israel got this letter, he said, "Am I God? I ain't God. I can't do this. You got the wrong one." So verse 8, so it says, "So it was when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, 'Why have you torn your clothes? Please let him come to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel.'" Verse 9, "Then Naaman went with his horses and chariot, and he stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, 'Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored to you, and you shall be clean.'" Let's pause right there. This is a lot of scripture. But essentially, Prophet Elisha is giving Naaman instructions. Prophet Elisha sent a messenger with these instructions for Naaman. And now, remember when I told you guys before to keep that in mind when the king, Naaman's master, gave him instruction. He said, "Go now, because I'm sending a letter to the king of Israel." And it said that Naaman departed. So he obeyed those instructions. So now, fast forward, here we are. Elisha gets wind of this. Prophet Elisha gets wind of this, and he sends word back to Naaman. And he says, "Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and you're going to be healed. Your flesh will be restored to you. You will be made clean." And here's how Naaman responds. This is how Naaman, y'all, this really, verse 11 says, "But Naaman became furious and went away and said, 'Indeed, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy.'" Verse 12, "Are not the Abana and the Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and went away in a rage. I want to pause right there, because what, Naaman? You got some nerve. Like, you the one out here with leprosy. You a leper, and you got the nerve to be like, y'all, Naaman was a lot of things. Naaman was a mighty man of valor. Naaman was a great and mighty commander of the army. And also, it sounds like Naaman was also prideful. it sounds like Naaman struggled with pride, that there was a spirit of pride rooted in Naaman. And I'm wondering if that is what caused the leprosy. Anyway, we're not going to go into that because I could go into a rabbit hole. But there was something required of Naaman. There was action that he needed to take in order to receive his healing. Prophet Elijah said, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times." So there was instructions that he needed to follow that he did not want to follow. He thought that he was too good to do this. He said, surely, I said to myself, he will surely come out to me. He's talking about Prophet Elisha. Prophet Elisha will surely come out to me, the commander of the army, to me, a mighty man of valor, to me, the one who is great and mighty. Surely he will come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and wave his hand over the place and heal the leprosy. So he was expecting a big show. He was expecting something extravagant, a miracle that was just mind-blowing. That's what he was expecting. So when Elisha gave him the instructions that sounded so simple, go and wash in the Jordan 7 times and you'll be healed. Naaman, it says that Naaman turned away and he went away in a rage. He thought that, he said, hold up, there are better rivers. The Jordan. I ain't gonna wash in the Jordan, that dirty river. I'm not going there. I'm not dipping myself in there. Absolutely not. What's that? That's pride. It sounds like a lot of pride, Naaman. And so I want to continue on because it's a lot of scripture. I want to continue on. Verse 13, it says, and his servants came near and spoke to him and said, my father, if the prophet had told you to do something great, would you not have done it? How much more then when he says to you, wash and be clean? It says, verse 14, so he went down, Naaman went down and dipped 7 times in the Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And what happened? And his flesh was restored like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. Y'all. So exactly what Prophet Elisha said, it happened as he said it. He said, Naaman, this is what you're supposed to do. Go wash in the Jordan 7 times and you're going to be restored. You're going to be healed. And that's exactly what happened. But I want to point out Naaman's servant. It was Naaman's servant who convinced him to do this thing. He checked him. And that's why you have to have people around you that aren't afraid to check you. You can't have yes men around you. You have to have people who are rooted in the Spirit of God, who are rooted in Christ, who are willing to check you on your foolishness, who are willing to call out the things that need to be called out in you, who are willing to correct you in love. You got to have people around you like that because your miracle depends on it. Your miracle depends on it. So Naaman, he did it, of course. He went down and he followed the instructions. He washed in the Jordan 7 times. And guess what happened? His flesh was restored and became clean and became healed again. And so here's what I want you guys to take from this. There are some of you who crave the miracle, who are praying for the miracle because you don't want to do the work required. There are 2 more scriptures that I want to go to. The first one is Matthew chapter 8, starting at verse 5. And it says, now when Jesus had entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, pleading with him, saying, Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed, dreadfully tormented. And Jesus said to him, I will come and heal him. And the centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. It says, verse 10, when Jesus heard it, he marveled and said to those who followed, assuredly, I say to you, I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel. Then verse 13 says, then Jesus said to the centurion, go your way, and as you have believed, so let it be done for you. And his servant was healed that same hour. Now, I want to point out some similarities and some differences between Naaman and this centurion man. And so they were both, here's a similarity. They were both men of authority. They were both commanders of some capacity, of some degree. They had authority. I just looked up the Greek definition of centurion, and it says an officer in the Roman army, the captain of 100 men. And so he had people under him, just like he said. It says that he is also a man of authority. He is a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes. And so he understood that I have the power to speak a thing, and it must happen because of the authority that I hold, because of the position that I hold. And so the difference here is the humility that he had. He said to Jesus, Lord, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak a word and my servant will be healed. He said, say the word, Jesus. Say the word and my servant will be healed. I know it to be true. All you got to do is say the word. I'm not worthy for you to come under my roof. Now, let's go back to what Naaman said. When Prophet Elisha gave him instructions to wash in the Jordan 7 times, Naaman said, surely I was thinking that he was going to come out to me. No. How could this be? No, he was supposed to come out to me and stand and call on the name of his God, the Lord his God, and wave his hand and call on the name of his God and heal the leprosy. That's how it was supposed to happen. Look at the two very different dispositions. One is rooted in pride and the other humility. I mean, we know that Prophet Elisha was no Jesus. And so, maybe that made the difference in their responses. But prophets back then heard directly from God. And so the people reverenced the prophets because they knew that they hear from God. If they wanted to hear from God, they needed to go to a priest or a prophet back then in the old covenant. In this new covenant that we have, because of Jesus, we have direct access to the Father. Gone are the days where we have to go through a priest or a prophet to hear from God. And so that's all I'll say about that. So moving on to the next and the last passage that I want to go to, it is John chapter 5. And in John chapter 5, this is about the man healed at the pool of Bethesda. John chapter 5, starting at verse 1, it says, after this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first, after the stirring of the water, was made well of whatever disease he had. So I want to pause right there real quick. That word well, made well, it's also another word for it is whole, made whole. And the definition says sound of a man who is sound in body, to make one whole, to restore back to health. So I just want to paint a picture. Imagine a place. Imagine a pool. You know how you go to the pools in the summer back in the day? Imagine a pool of a great multitude, not just, 5 or 10 people, a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, and paralyzed. And everybody is waiting for the same thing. Everybody is waiting for the moving of the water, which only happens at a certain time. So at a certain time, an angel comes down and he stirs up the water. And whoever steps in first, that person was made well. That person was healed of whatever disease that he had. Verse 5 says, now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. That word infirmity, it means disease, weakness of the body, feebleness of health, or sickness of the soul, to bear trials and troubles. What does that say? That says to me that wounds in our soul result in a physical sickness, illness, disease, or ailment. So soul wounds leads to physical sickness. So if you're experiencing a physical sickness, then check your soul. It's time to check your soul. Ask God to reveal any wound, any hidden wound in your soul. So moving on. Verse 6, it says, when Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in that condition a long time, he said to him, do you want to be made well? Do you even want to be healed? Do you even want to be made well? Verse 7 says, the sick man answered him, sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I'm coming, another steps down before me. Verse 8 says, Jesus said to him, rise, take up your bed and walk. Verse 9, and immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. So I'm going to pause right there. This man's first response to Jesus's question, Jesus said, do you want to be made well? And this man's first response, I would say, is an excuse. He said, I have no one to help me, sir. There's nobody here to put me in the pool. And everybody else steps down before me. He's looking around for everyone else when the King of Glory, Jehovah Rapha, is right before his eyes. Granted, he had no idea who Jesus was because he would have came correct. He would have been like the centurion who said, just say the word. Say the word. Say the word. So when Jesus said to him, rise, take up your bed and walk, it says immediately. That means no delay. There was no delay in his action. He took action. It says immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked. There was no delay in his action. He did exactly what Jesus instructed him to do. He was willing when Jesus said, take up your bed and walk. Those were instructions. And the man did. Unlike Naaman, who we know when he received the instructions from Prophet Elisha, he didn't do immediately. There was no quick obedience there. How desperate are you? How desperate are you for that breakthrough? How desperate are you for the miracle? How desperate are you for deliverance? How desperate are you for healing? Another thing I want to point out is this man, it says he was laying here for 38 years. Well, excuse me, it says that he had an infirmity 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lying there, he already knew that he'd been in that condition a long time. And so who knows how long he was laying there at the pool. But it says that there lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed. So he was surrounded by sickness, illness, and disease. That's what he surrounded himself with. How many of us know that we are the company we keep? We become the company we keep. What's the saying? Birds of a feather flock together. Watch the company you keep, because you take on their habits, you take on their behaviors, you take on their way of speaking, their way of believing, their way of thinking. You got to watch who you surround yourself with. And it's important because if we go to let's go down to verse 11. It says, he answered them, let me just read verse 10. The Jews therefore said to him who was cured, it's the Sabbath. It's not lawful for you to carry your bed. And he answered them, he who made me well said to me, take up your bed and walk. And then they asked him, who's the man who said to you, take up your bed and walk? But the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, a multitude being in that place. First of all, I want to pause right there because wow, this is a fresh revelation that I just got. They went from this passage, the Bible goes from referring to this man as the sick man in verse 7. It says the sick man answered him. And then after he was healed, oh my goodness, y'all, after Jesus healed him, his identity changed. His name changed. His name changed. He was no longer referred to as the sick man. Now he was referred to as the one who was healed. The one who was healed. Oh my goodness. Look, that's for somebody. That's for somebody, because why are you still referring to yourself as who you used to be? Why are you still answering? Why are you still answering to who you used to be? Why are you still answering when people refer to you as who you used to be? Stop answering to the names that no longer fit who you are now. Stop answering to the names of who you used to be. God calls you healed. God calls you daughter. God calls you the apple of his eye. God calls you delivered. God calls you redeemed. God calls you restored. God calls you made whole. If it does not align with what God says about you, don't answer. Verse 14 says, afterward, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, see, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. 15, the man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. And so this man went from being surrounded by sick people to now he couldn't be found where he used to be. Where he used to hang out, you won't catch him there. It says that Jesus found him in the temple. Jesus found him in the temple. His environment changed as a result of his healing. His identity changed, his name changed, his environment changed. And so if things don't change after your healing, if you don't change where you are, if you don't change your environment, if you don't change the people you hang around, the company you keep, then you are going to end up back in that same place that God just brought you out of. Something is required of you. Jesus said, sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you. AKA change your lifestyle. Don't go back. Don't go back. Don't go back to what I just healed you from. Don't go back to what I just brought you out of. Don't go back to what I just delivered you from. Something has to change. And it starts with you. So how do all these stories connect? Something is required of you. You have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing. How desperate are you for deliverance? How desperate are you for healing? How desperate are you? You have to take action. Stop praying for a miracle and ask God to show you, God, what is it that I need to do? What is required of me? What and I'm not talking about works. I'm not talking about works because we know that we are not saved by works. We're only saved by grace through faith. And not works, lest any man should boast. Right? And so I'm not talking about works here. But we are in partnership with God. That means we have to do our part. There's something required of us. We have to take hold of the things that have been freely given to us as a result of the cross. There's something required of you. What are you willing to do? You have to be willing to pray like you've never prayed before. You have to be willing to fast like you never fasted before. You have to be willing to do the things that you've never done before to receive what you have never received. You get what I'm saying? You can't do the same things and expect a different result. You have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to do something different. Something is required of you. Do the work necessary. Stop praying for a miracle and then going back to that same lifestyle. I think of, imagine somebody is praying for healing from high cholesterol. Lord, I just know that you gonna heal me. You gonna heal me, Lord. The doctor said that I got high cholesterol, but Lord, I know nothing is too hard for you, and you gonna heal me. Yes, God is going to heal. God can do anything. He absolutely is willing and able to heal you. But are you willing to do what it takes? Because the miracle, the healing is available to you, but you have to change something about yourself. You can't say, God, heal me. God, I receive your healing, and then go back to the same lifestyle that landed you in the doctor's office. Go back to the same lifestyle that caused high cholesterol. Lord, you gonna heal me, but you still eating McDonald's for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. Huh? Make it make sense, please. Something is required of you. You have to also change your life, change your lifestyle. This man that we just read about in John chapter 5, it says that Jesus found him in the temple. Where was he when Jesus first encountered him? He was at the pool, surrounded by other sick people. After his healing, you couldn't catch him there anymore. He was found in the temple, He changed. He turned. And now the same thing is required of you. When you receive healing, when you receive deliverance, don't go back. Don't go back to that lifestyle. Don't go back to that thing. Don't go back to that way of eating. Don't go back to that way of thinking, whatever it is. You saying God gonna heal me, God gonna heal me, but you're still doing the same things. Could it be that God cannot trust you with this miracle that he desires to give you? Could it be that God can't trust you with your healing? So it hasn't happened yet. Because there's something that needs to shift in you. Can God trust you with what he wants to give to you? Can God trust you? So if it's health, if it's healing in your body that you're praying for, that you're believing for, can God trust you with that? Will you steward well the healing that he's given you? Will you steward it well? What does stewarding it well look like? Well, for health, it means eating healthier. It means taking care of your body, taking care of the temple that God has given you. He's gifted you with this body. Now, are you stewarding it well? Eating well, working out, whatever it is, taking care of your body, taking care of your health, being mindful of the things that you eat. See, I gave y'all a warning in the beginning of the episode, and I said that I might yoke y'all up in this episode. I might gather y'all a little bit in this episode. And so, look, I yoked you up, but I'm letting go right now. I'm letting go of your collar. I'm letting go of your collar. And now I want you guys to really think about this and ask yourself, am I willing to do what it takes? There's something required of me, and now am I willing to do what it takes? God has already done his part. Now it's my turn. It's my turn to do my part. So a few questions I want you guys to write down from regarding this passage specifically. What/who are you waiting for? This man, he said, there's nobody to help me into the pool. Are you waiting for somebody else to do the work for you? Are you waiting for somebody else to keep praying for you? Sometimes you got to pray for yourself. Sometimes you have to encourage yourself in the Lord, like David did. He encouraged himself in the Lord. Sometimes you just got to do that. Stop waiting for everybody else to do it for you. You know what? That's actually a pet peeve of mine. And I used to think that it was selfish of me when people said, "Oh, pray for me," and I'd be like, you could pray for yourself. My prayers ain't gonna reach God faster than you. Like, you could pray for yourself as well. Yes, I'm gonna pray for you, but you can also pray for yourself. And I thought, like, oh, is there something wrong with me because I'm feeling this or I'm thinking this? But no, because you should be praying for yourself. You should be interceding for yourself as well. You cannot rely on the prayers of your grandmother anymore. They got you this far, and now it's your turn to pray for yourself, for your family, for your children, for the generations that will come after you. The next question I want you guys to write down and answer: are you delaying action for a certain time? Are you waiting? Oh, I'll do this when this happens, or when I get X amount of money in my account, when I get this, when I'm here, then I'll blank. Are you waiting for a certain time? It says that these people, the sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, they were waiting for the moving of the water. And the angel came down at a certain time. Are you waiting for a certain time to do something? Are you delaying action for a certain time? The next question and the last question I want you to write down. Are you expecting it to happen a certain way? Are you expecting it to happen a certain way? This man who was healed by Jesus, this man who was suffering with infirmity for 38 years, this man was expecting his miracle to come by way of getting in the pool. Little did he know that Jesus was going to step on the scene and tell him the most simple instructions. Get up, pick up your bed, and walk. We can even go back to the story with Naaman. He was expecting it to happen a certain way. He was expecting Prophet Elijah to do this extravagant show, wave his arms in the air and call on the Lord his God, and miraculously, boom, there goes his healing. He was expecting it to happen a certain way. And when it didn't, it says that he was furious. And so, are you expecting it to happen a certain way? Whatever that it is, if it's healing, if it's deliverance, if it's, a spouse you're waiting on, if it's a promise from God that you're waiting on, are you expecting it to happen a certain way? When we're expecting something to happen a certain way, what ends up happening is we reject the very thing that God has for us. Because we're expecting it to happen a certain way. We're expecting it to look a certain way or to sound a certain way, to show up a certain way. And when it doesn't, we ain't checking for it. We ain't checking for that thing. Unless it lines up with what we thought it should be. And so that's all I got. That's all I got for y'all today. I know this was a long episode, so if you made it this far, thanks for enduring and getting yoked up. And because you needed it. You needed to be yoked up because there's something required of you. You need to stop playing, get up, pick up your mat, and walk. Do what's required of you. Do what's required of you. Stop delaying. Stop making up excuses. Stop waiting for anybody else to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. Jesus already did it at the cross. Now it's up to you to take hold. It's up to you to take hold of it. So that is it. That's all I have for you guys today. I pray that you have ears to hear, eyes to see, and a heart to receive it. I love you guys, and I will see y'all in the next episode.